And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Network here in the bunker in an undisclosed location, sitting alongside Vice Presidents Agnew and Dick Cheney. Yes, we've got a new home right now. We put together an organization necessary to continue broadcasting about issues in Rhode Island, the United States, and the world at large, politics and the greater culture. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course the mothership at coalitionradio.us. Now we broadcast live from a number of areas, and again, work with us as over the last few days as we continue to work through the technical issues to get this show up and running. Currently, we are on the Facebook at Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. We broadcast live from CoalitionRadioNetwork.com. And we're also experimenting tonight with Twitter Periscope as well as LinkedIn. And we'll continue to expand our programming options as we go. So we're working out the schedule. And we hope to grow this into a number of shows and approaches to the issues of the day, as we always say, the body politic and the greater culture. The point here is to offer folks an alternative to what is largely regarded as a closed media circuit here in Rhode Island. There's some great shows here, and there's some great local reporters, both independent and a handful of them affiliated with, quote-unquote, the mainstream media. We're just a little bit different. It's a long-form interview format. We've actually been on the air for 7 years at a variety of places. This is the first that's truly our own. But 45 minutes or an hour long, commercial-free. We are supported by sponsors and individual donations. We'll talk more about that later. But the point being is that we want subject matter experts to come on, whether it be on local issues, as we are tonight, or national issues or international issues. And we want to give them the opportunity to develop the conversation, develop their subject matter, get into the weeds. Unfortunately, most conventional media, great people, but ultimately have to limit the conversation to 2, 3, 4 minute sound bites. Very often a subject matter expert guest like we have tonight will be on for 7 or 8 minutes, 2 or 3 which will be taken up by commercials, 1 or 2 minutes will be introducing and reintroducing the guest, and then 2 or 3 minutes in there splitting conversation. How much can you develop? How much can you learn? How much can you expose? How much can you develop? So the coalition has always existed to take things a little deeper. Your host, Pat Ford, is incapable of polite, idle conversation. He's only capable of having long-winded, drawn-out, well, if you know me, you know. We just take that live to the air. And so that we're hoping that you'll follow us as we develop our schedule. We're hoping you'll find us another, if you will, item on your media menu. We definitely are going to be on Friday nights from 6 to 9, as we have been for a number of years. And then we're going to be filling in the gaps with different live and remote programming. We are going to be an active member of the Rhode Island media, as well as the press corps per se. Sorry, Gina, you'll see us at a presser near you soon. So it is with great pride that I bring this to you, again, in an effort to, as we investigate, as we dive into this new normal that we find ourselves hopefully temporarily in. We have a new normal in terms of the media. I'm never going to talk over a guest. I'm not going to interrupt them. I'm not going to condescend to them. They're infinitely more interesting than I am. Why would I want to do that? I will never condescend or talk over to any of our listeners either. Why would I want to do that? We're all part of a community. We're all part of the greater Rhode Island picture. And while many of our shows are going to be oriented towards a libertarian/small government venue, this show also aggressively courts listeners and guests from all sides of the political spectrum, hence the coalition. The overriding theme, in addition to respectful, well-developed, thoughtful conversation, is that when you get past the machine politicians, when you get past the corporatist Democrats and the corporatist Republicans, there are people on every end of the political spectrum who believe in liberty, who believe in self-ownership, who believe in body autonomy, they just come at it from different perspectives. So we, as much as we want people to develop their own expertise, their own thoughts, at the same time, we're also looking for overlap. We're looking for areas where folks can agree and sometimes agree to disagree. That's kind of a tossing out to you the approach of the new coalition. In fact, we'll call this Coalition 3.0. So let's get right down to it. Joining me, well, really on the new coalition for the first time, but someone who qualified as what we call a repeat offender in past coalition efforts, is someone who is intimately involved with protecting your Second Amendment rights. Really understands the whole concept behind thou shalt not infringe. She's a sportswoman and a farmer and a activist by day. She's a lobbyist and a political activist by night. She's involved in literally every aspect of the community. And in supporting her civil rights, her natural-born rights to bear arms, in self-defense, and in defense against a government gone mad, she really is espousing the true common sense gun solution. Of course, I'm talking about Brenda Jacobs. She is with the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association here in Rhode Island. Brenda, thank you for joining us, and thanks for working through our technical issues early on. We appreciate your involvement here and your willingness, in a sense, to be one of our very first guests on the coalition.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This is great
I'm
stuff.
glad that I can go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is great stuff, because what a barrier, if you will, to participation in the past had been the fact that we didn't have a really well-developed way to reach out to folks in different parts of the state who, for whatever reason, couldn't join us in studio that night. This is light years in improvement. And again, we're grateful for you working through the tech with us. So tell us about it. First of all, if you give us a little background, if you will, about your involvement in really a lifelong involvement in sporting and the use of guns, and also about the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. If you give us a little background on them as well.
Okay. Well, I started as a competitor on the junior rifle team, and I have competed with pistol, small ball rifle, high power rifle. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten more involved in all of the different organizations. I'm the league director for Ocean State Junior Rifle Association. I'm the secretary and lobbyist for Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. I'm the secretary of South County Rod and Gun Club. I'm the Rhode Island State CMP director. I'm an instructor. I'm a coach. So I am pretty much involved in every aspect of the shooting sports and the political part too.
And tell us about
Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle. Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle. We were founded in 1938, and we actually, a lot of people don't know this, but it was Don DiBiasio and Perry Wheeler and my dad that actually started ILA for NRA. So we've been around a long time, and we've been active politically and have been defending people's Second Amendment rights since 1938.
That's outstanding. Now, you also work with young people very, very closely. Yes. in a variety of aspects. Tell us about that as well.
So I run the league for Ocean State Junior Rifle, but I'm also a coach. My son is actually a competitor, and we have coached quite a few kids throughout the state that have ended up going to Air Force Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, MIT, full scholarships to Akron. We have sent kids out to the Junior Olympic Championships out in Colorado. So we do a lot of coaching. We have a lot of great kids, a lot of, we really pride ourselves on teaching the kids safety and, sportsmanship. There's just so much that this sport has to offer. And most of our clubs provide it for free too, which is not something that you see this day and age as far as any type of sporting events for kids.
And speak to the values that our kiddos learn in terms of responsibility, citizenship, just a teamwork, all of that. Speak to that, if you will, by being involved with these organizations.
Well, we're teaching the kids responsibility. We're teaching them sportsmanship. We're teaching them safety. Responsibility is huge. But there's a deeper part on the coaching side. There's a deeper part that we help kids that learn self-control and composure. And it can be a team sport or it can be an individual sport. And those kids learn self-confidence. I've seen a lot of kids come in and they weren't very self-confident, and their parents are just searching for the right sport for their child. And then they find the shooting sports, and the kids end up flourishing because they finally find a niche, and it's something that they can do as an independent sport, but then they grow into being great team players. And I think that that's a hidden gem out of teaching these kids.
And how it speaks to almost a time gone by, because as part of this too, you've got an entire network of sporting and shooting clubs across the state, which create a really an extended family of Rhode Islanders everywhere. How important is family as part of this?
Family, there are so many families involved, and as a coach, I've been involved in other sports and well, not so much sports, but other organizations. And the parents drop the kids off, and in our sport they don't. They stay and they want to learn and develop, and then they want to come to the range with their kids on off days. And it's really a huge family sport. And it's also one of those things that the grandparents and parents want to send down for generations too, because that's really it's a lot of tradition, a lot of family tradition. And going to our whole community, I have to say, and I really hate saying this out loud, but they've actually helped us with all this gun legislation, because what's happened is, before all this started happening, I belong to South County, and I belong to this club, and I belong to that club, and we didn't all communicate. So now the funny thing is that now all the clubs are talking, all the clubs are communicating, all the clubs are sharing information. And I can tell you that the family bond between all of these clubs has flourished under, by us having to be together all the time.
Right. And that's a perfect segue, because the folks see out there on the social media, and folks see out there on nights when the color of gold literally floods the city of Providence, they see a variety of organizations that are represented. And maybe you can just give us a little snapshot on the major ones and how they work cooperatively, both in activities and in sharing support, but also on a political end, where you see folks in gold up in the rafters, if you will, keeping really the most incredible eye on on our state's leadership, if you will. Give us a background on that.
So the four major gun groups that work together are the Federated Sportsmen, the Rhode Island Firearm Owners League, Second Amendment Coalition, and Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle. And we actually talk by text, email, phone, conference call. There's a few of us from each group, and every day we communicate, and every day we all go over the bills and go over strategy and communicate with the clubs and try and get as much information out to all of our members as we can. And a lot of people don't realize how often we talk. We watch everything that's going on, and we just try and make sure that we're paying very close attention to all the bills and legislation. And we go over everything, every aspect, every what if. And we really have a very good teamwork going, which I think is what's been able to help us better than some of the other states. So it is a good camaraderie, and we all represent our members. So we all represent different facets of competition, hunting, just the person that wants to exercise a Second Amendment right. So we all bring different things to the table that are beneficial.
Right. And so how can folks, and by the way, I was particularly impressed because I was sitting in my office trying to figure out how I was going to get to work on time a few weeks ago when our state leadership, and I'll use the coalition air quotes on that, had decided that they were going to listen to 18 bills in one evening. We'll get to that in a second, but I was impressed by the fact that here I was scrambling, and we all got to text. And in fact, it was funny because there was a couple of us in our office who had no idea we were all in the same network. We all looked at our text together to find out that thanks in large part, and I'll use the term political pressure, that the ludicrous nature of attempting to listen to 18, if you can consider or dignify them with the term serious legislation, in one evening had been put off due to the at that point looming coronavirus crisis. So again, that's, you folks are the poster children for what needs to happen amongst community organizations who stand on the front lines of really defending our most basic human rights, our most basic civil rights, and our most natural-born rights. It's literally a blueprint. What are some of the other organizations that are involved in this? You've got a couple of different coalitions here.
Yeah, we have the Federated Sportsmen, and then we have Rifle and Second Amendment Coalition. And so like Federated, they've been the one that we've kind of, we use their platform for all of our meetings, and they do all of the trails, they do all the hunting. We all work together, and we do free ladies days, free kids days. We try and educate the public as much as we can. And we all work together and co-sponsor so many events throughout the state. They help the Junior League. We're helping veterans. We had a chili cook-off for Christmas to help the Dare to Dream Ranch. So we work on a lot of different things together to help get the word out and to let people know how valuable we are to our community. Because I think that's where people don't realize when you're a gun owner that it's a stigma. And we're trying to break through the stigma, and we're trying to let people know that we are valuable to our community. We help with conservation, preservation. We had a whole group go down and do the blood drive. We help the veterans. So there's a lot of things that we do. And each individual club in this state also helps their communities that their club is in. And we just need people to know that we have a value, and we'd have a financial input through Pittman-Robertson Act. Any money that we spend on firearms and ammunition comes back to this state and is used for our state range. It's used for land management. So we have a lot of value, and that's something that we've been really pushing hard lately to get out to the public, so that they don't just look at you as a gun owner, which that has changed in the past week or so, because all of a sudden the Second Amendment is not just about hunting anymore, and you can see that by the lines around the gun stores.
This has been a wake-up call for so many in regard to the vast mosaic of our civil rights. And all of a sudden, folks, as they see events unfold, realize that in many cases, government is attempting to act responsibly, but at the same time, you see, well, as the cliche goes, never let a good crisis go to waste. We'll talk in a minute about this. This in the middle of what was generally a well-regarded press conference, many of us found out, in fact, that again, they're screwing around with the rules and regulations as it suits them, using the coronavirus crisis as quite frankly as a beard, a ploy, if you will, to hide behind. It's every time they've almost got us. Every time we want to sit back and smile, okay, things might not be as bad as it seemed. There has to be some sort of back door that they try to slip something in through. It's depressing. Well, but let's get back a couple of weeks ago. There was, first off, if you could give us as I always ask you when you come on, a report card grade. What is the state of Second Amendment rights in Rhode Island right now? How would you grade it?
As far as
just
them coming after our gun rights?
Are our rights healthy?
They're full steam ahead. I think that we have well-balanced gun laws in this state, and I think that that's why we're so low in crime, and we haven't had any mass shootings or anything tragic like that happen, because we are well-balanced. And really, let's face it, not everybody knows who might or might not have a firearm, and I think that is a deterrent for crime. I think it's a deterrent for any school shenanigans. I really feel like we have our bases covered, and that we don't need more firearm laws, what we need to do is we need to enforce the laws that we already have on the books. Because if I was going to say there's a gap, we've been finding that there's been so many early releases on prisoners that have multiple weapons charges, and they just keep getting let out. In some cases, we find that people are getting arrested within 3 days of their previous arrest on gun charges. So that's the gap. But other than that, I feel like our firearm laws in this state are very good.
Well, and that seems to be the case always. Government would have you believe that more laws are necessary when one need only see the tragedy that occurred in Florida just a year or so ago and realize that at almost every step, government failed in both their responsibility in terms of interdiction of the actual event, and government failed miserably on all the stages and steps that we've afforded them as a citizenry to be involved in, preventing those situations. So the one wishes that perhaps they invested maybe 1/10 of the energy that they do in trying to create new laws and trying to grandstand, as so many politicians here in Rhode Island do around the Second Amendment, as they would just simply enforcing the basics. A good friend of mine always talks about, John Fennessy, always mentions that, issue, and I'm condensing here, but ultimately issues begin at aggression, not at possession. And so you've got this steady drumbeat. Let's pass a law. It's sort of a 21st equivalent version, and you have to be of a certain age to get this analogy of, Judy, let's do a show. It's time. I need to raise more money. And by the way, and I'll speak to this. I'm not going to put you on the spot with this. One of the most insidious aspects of the anti-Second Amendment movement is, let's just say, the amount of money they're able to manufacture by fundraising, by exploiting campaign finance laws and creating all sorts of non-political organizations that can fundraise based on the desire to control guns and to create common sense gun legislation. That's always the term, right? So, they raise a tremendous amount of money on it, which they use to donate to their own politicians, when we've always, as you mentioned,
to themselves.
Right, because a lot of folks a lot of folks on that side of the aisle make a whole lot of money helping the poor and keeping us from having our own guns. They really do. It works out well for them. It's kind of an unknown career path here in Rhode Island. So it's just when you see that kind of stupidity, and just this cynical behavior, it really is disgusting. So our government decided they were going to put up 18 different laws in one evening. Again, how insulting that is to patriots who believe in the Constitution and the Second Amendment and believe in their natural born rights to bear arms. What were all these bills? It presented to us, most of us, as just this kind of steaming turd of legislation. What were some of the things they were trying to control this time?
It's the same. A lot of the same stuff, like raising the age for the kids to 21 to be able to possess, a firearm, which that hurts us in the juniors a lot, because some of them do transport their firearm. They're over 18. They transport their firearm to the range for practice. They have the usual magazine capacity ban, and they have the assault weapon ban, which I'll get into more detail. But just the normal stuff they come at us every year with. The gun-free zones, we have to always throw that in there too. And then, but I want to particularly talk about the assault weapon ban, because that one is so dangerous. And I don't care if you're a gun person or not a gun person. You need to worry about that bill, because that bill sets a definite precedence about how what could happen to us down the road. That bill, what it does is it takes firearms, and it actually, they say it's assault rifle, assault weapon, but it actually sweeps all guns into that bill. If a firearm can hold a bayonet, it's in the bill. If it has a threaded barrel, which a lot of your shotguns and 22 rifles and that's in the ban. If it can hold more than 6 rounds, that's in there. So what they're doing is they're essentially saying, we're not coming after your Second Amendment rights. We're not going to say you can't have guns, but that bill right there proves that they are after every single firearm that we own, because just in the language of that bill, it sweeps everything in. And if it's our guns today, is it going to be your cell phone tomorrow? Or, that there's a precedent set when they start taking people's personal property. So, that bill right there is dangerous. And even if you're not a firearm owner, you should be very worried about, for one, the games they're playing by the wording of the bill, and how dangerous that bill is as far as taking your personal property.
And what folks fail to realize, that at the root of a significant part of our Constitution and a significant part of our natural rights are, in fact, property rights. That government cannot impinge or restrict your behavior when engaged in legal and lawful, whether it be congregation, the use of firearms. But as importantly, government does not have the right to seize your property based on capricious laws created by men in direct conflict with your natural rights. They simply don't, do they? I mean,
Yeah,
ultimately,
they don't.
Go ahead.
They don't take any of that into consideration. And people don't realize this isn't, to some people, it's just a firearm, but to other people, some of these people invest thousands of dollars, thousands, into their firearms. And now we're just going to give them up because you don't like that we have guns. Like, that's ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. What happened that night leading into this? I mean, the Second Amendment family, if you will, clearly had mobilized again. And one has got to be exhausted by this war of attrition, because they keep coming back and coming back and coming back in direct conflict with what is clearly the majority of Rhode Islanders, and clearly in conflict again, like a broken record, with folks' natural born rights, and clearly in conflict with the Rhode Island Constitution, which, by the way, just as a kind of a crazy reminder, kids, that these folks had sworn to uphold said Rhode Island Constitution, although they clearly forget that the minute the shrimp cocktails come out and after the swearing-in ceremony, they're ready to rumble. But what if you will, tell me about the events of that day. What was going on?
They had already riled us up a little bit, because we had the financial meeting, where once again we were told that we were a negative externality by our governor, and that's why she wanted to tax the gun clubs. This time she was going after the gun clubs, all the nonprofit gun clubs that are out there, which she doesn't realize that most of us own property. So that means we're joint tenants in common. So if she was to tax our memberships, she's actually taxing us to use our own facilities, which is crazy, but that's a whole nother story. So, but her finance guys did come out, and like we were so taken back, because they really came out and said that we're negative externalities, and that is the whole basis for her tax, because she knows that, we all know that she doesn't care for our community and care for us being gun owners, and that she thought by taxing us that she was going to limit people owning guns. So we had already been able to rally the troops, because that was already that was like spearheaded the movement. And then we found out all the bills were going to be heard on March 11th. So we did have a full rally ready to roll. And then, all of this stuff with the coronavirus started coming out, and people were starting to get, antsy about, are we going? Are they going to get up there? Are they going to shut us down? Especially when she came out with a press conference and said we were going to be limited to 250 people. So what we had inside information is that was her plan, was to limit us to 250 people. And then the rest of us could email our testimony. So you can only imagine how well that was going to be received. But I have to say that the speaker helped us out on that one, because he did not feel that was going to be fair to the community. And him and Senator Ruggiero spoke, and they decided that was best for the safety of all of our community and all the people of the State House, that they just cancel the hearings to eliminate any type of scene and to eliminate and to be err on the side of caution with the coronavirus, because we were still in the beginning phases of everything and how contagious it was. So I think
Right.
that was a good call on his part.
Yeah, that seemed to be a very, very fair response. On a practical level, it would appear at least that has pushed off their ability to come, running through with, throwing bills to the left and right, and as they ran down the aisle. Where do things stand right now with that legislation? Is it truly on hold, or will there be an attempt to virtually move it through the halls of Congress?
Well, right now, there's no law in place that says they can do any virtual hearings. But we're in uncharted territory, so we don't know what they're going to try. At the moment, everything is just held. No, they've canceled all sessions at the State House, all floor votes at the State House. So right now, everything's just in limbo. And we've also had a couple other bills that have moved through, and one of them I think is still going to House Judiciary, and the other one it passed the Senate. So those are also in limbo. That would be the background check bill and the ghost gun bill. So they're also stuck at the moment. So we don't know what's going to happen with those, but we are watching every day and listening to every day, because I don't know. We just don't know. This is uncharted territory.
If you're just joining us, you are listening to and watching The Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, as well as on the Facebook at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. Brenda Jacobs is joining us. She is with the Rhode Island, and I always mess this up. It's just let's see if I get it straight this time. Revolver and Rifle Association, part of a network, if you will, of pro-Second Amendment organizations here in Rhode Island, which are in place to protect a variety of aspects on your right to bear arms. They come from the competitive rifle shooting. They come from the hunting organizations. They come from game clubs. They come from organizations who are more political in nature, who are focused exclusively on the Second Amendment, as well as lifestyle issues. So she's joining us, and we're taking a moment in the midst of all this corona crisis madness, and it is madness if you're a certain age. This is sort of a nightmare scenario for a lot of people. But we're taking a moment to kind of take people's eye off of that and look at the issues that are facing us as a government today. And if there is any, and I certainly make no light of this, we've got a good friend in New York City, I hope you'll pray for, who has been hospitalized with corona, to answer the immortal Facebook question. Yes, I do know someone personally who is suffering from it right now. A wonderful, wonderful friend. But we're taking a few minutes to look at the issues of the day and get people's minds off of things for a bit. And also to educate people, as we've done earlier this evening, about the real nature, the true nature of competitive hunting, sporting, the how critical it is to bear arms in difficult periods like these to protect folks' civil rights against the potential for a government gone mad. So in reflection on that, we're looking at the 18 bills that were presented in the, if you will, the early days of the coronavirus that were put on hold, trying to understand the legislative roadmap for an environment that's never been really, this is uncharted territory. You're going to hear those terms a lot. If there is, and so I say very carefully, with a little bit of joy in my heart, if there is any upside to this terrible, terrible situation, it's the fact that legislatures around the country are shut down, and government is, and I'm not a government person at all, I'm just not, but government is in fact focusing on salient issues that actually impact people's lives. The jury's out as to just how good a job they're doing it on it. So for the time being, we've got sort of a timeout on the playing field here until either A, the executive branch decides to test the limits, if you will, of the emergency order as it's defined by Rhode Island state law and the Rhode Island Constitution, and perhaps try to create an environment where the legislation can take place. How is that something you folks have discussed as a potential, as a possibility?
Yeah, we've talked about it quite a bit, actually. We're against any legislation being heard via email, because you know that we're not going to get the same effect as being there, especially where a lot of the anti-gun legislators already say that people, we're a minority in this issue, and when we show up with 4,000 people, the opposition shows up with 60 people, and they keep telling us that we're the minority and that the majority of people want to ban guns. I'm like, how you just this Common Core math? That's all it's got to be Common Core math.
Really.
Seriously.
Take the
So,
third digit, move it underneath the first digit, add it, divide it by 2.
yeah, and I
you've got the
feel
answer.
like, we have a lot of we're very well behaved when we go to the state house, but we do have a lot of people in our group that would just not, there's no way that we would be able to handle not being able to testify in person. And I really feel that that would be a bad move on their part to even push that. Like, let's step back. I was talking to my son about this earlier. If the government, in order to continue to operate financially and for the safety of citizens, if they have to do remote voting, because I know the president was asked that today too, like, I can understand that. But when it comes to issues like this, where they want to change the Constitution, then I say no. Then don't do it remotely. We have to find a way to do it in person, because I just don't feel like that would be a complete disaster when it comes to constitutional rights if they start being able to do that.
There is absolutely
That's my opinion.
No, and it's a very fair one. I mean, there is absolutely no pressing need for additional gun legislation in the state. There just simply isn't.
No.
It's exhausting to listen to the twisted, logical gymnastics that takes place on behalf of certain legislators like Mr. Knight, who, by the way, I just want to put this on the side. I believe in the right to legal representation. It just, as an editorial note, Mr. Knight's pride at releasing in his successful defense of some very challenging personalities in this state at a time when he would have you believe that the true threat to public safety are the hardworking, thoroughly legal, responsible members of the gun community is just disgusting. I don't know what to say about that anymore.
Anybody? Yeah, I have something to say about that. Visit his website. I think that when you read his website and you see how he gloats about getting weapons charges dismissed when they're the third and fourth or fifth offense, and then you're up there and you're trying to take away our Second Amendment rights, quite frankly, I think he should recuse himself by what he has on his website. I really do. So you should, and anybody can fact check that on their own. Just go to his website and see how disgusting it is and how he gloats about some of the people that he's actually set free. And if you look even further into any of his cases and see just how many people he's gotten off of gun charges, and then he's up there telling us that we need to turn in our guns, I think that he should not be on that committee. I don't think that he should be even up there at this point.
Yeah, it's
that's my
no. I'm torn, because as someone who takes civil liberties very, very seriously, again, I respect and acknowledge the right to an aggressive defense by qualified legal counsel. It's part and parcel of our legal system. But the hypocrisy here, let's be blunt. If you've ever been in the audience when he's testified down to you, you feel like you're being spoken to by a child. You're a child in his. You're not capable of the kind of high thinking that he is. He is one condescending SOB, and it's time for him to go. You go now.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for candidates. We need candidates. And don't forget that if you're thinking of running for office, even though all of this stuff is going on, you can still online go. If you, like, I've always been an independent. And but if you're looking to run for office, you need to change you need to declare your party prior to March 27th, which you can do online still. So make sure that if you're thinking of
if I could jump in for a second, or you could stay an independent and declare as a libertarian, you contact me off the air and we'll be happy to support you. Because I will point out, I will take this moment to point out that there is only one political organization in this state that is thoroughly opposed to any type of red flag laws, that is thoroughly opposed to any type of magazine limitations, is thoroughly opposed to any age limitation. In fact, thoroughly believes that responsible gun use and also responsible reaction to the presence of guns in society should take place at a very early age. As a young preteen, I always leave it up to a parent's discretion, but as a young preteen, and you've seen it with your competitive organizations, a healthy respect, a healthy understanding of what role firearms take place in our society on a positive note, and also that the danger that they can be to irresponsible usage is a critical factor of being a young person here in the United States in the year 2020. And again, that's why my hat's always off to you, because you walk the walk. You literally take a significant amount of your life and work with young people in all aspects of this lifestyle and of the civil rights. So my hat's off to you on that. I found that to be a part of the life of just about every gun activist, every 2A activist that I've met. That these are folks who are intimately involved in the community, not just because of political ramifications. In fact, many of them would be very happy to leave the politics behind and simply return to a life where their families were involved in sporting activities and also taught a healthy respect to their children of the use of firearms in terms of protecting their civil rights. I out of all the folks you've met in the 2A movement, is that a fair statement for most of them? Wouldn't you rather all just be at home at this point than having to spend night after night perched up in the rafters at the State House, having to maintain a level of vigilance that's extreme to protect your civil rights? Wouldn't you rather just be at home with your family?
Well, we've all been joking about that because it's been really nice that we've been able to actually be home. My family recognizes me again because I've been home. So that we have been grateful for this time to kind of regroup, recharge. The other thing is that we've been watching and we don't even know how this is going to affect affect everything, is all the new firearm owners. That could be a game changer because, how are these reps going to be up there, and how are these anti-gun, or we call them anti-moms, how are we going to be up there saying that they're the majority when you have lines, wrapping around these gun stores and all of the firearms that have been sold? Like, are we still a minority, or, are those people going to count too? Like, this is going to be a whole new, all new blood coming in. Most of the gun stores are seeing first-time firearm owners. So this could be a game changer for the Second Amendment, and I'm hoping that it gives us, new members and new blood in our organizations. But I don't know how that the governor even can sit there and say that firearms aren't critical to the as your constitutional right anymore, when you see what's happening right now.
Yeah, there's just so little honesty, and that's in that side of the argument. And, I think we all want less violence in our streets. We all want less of a threat in our daily lives. We all crave that, but it's a simple recognition of reality that the basic fundamental right to bear arms is a reflection of your right to self-defense. It's something that is so critical in our system of jurisprudence here in the United States that, in fact, the ultimate act, if you will, of violence, the taking of another's life, is in fact exonerated if it happens in the process of defending your own life. That's how fundamental the right to self-defense is in our community, in our body politic, in our legal system, in our ethos, everything. So to say somehow to take this high and mighty approach that you're saving ourselves from ourselves is simply not a reflection of reality. And it's just time for them to stop it. We face a state right now that's on the brink of literally financial collapse. Under their tutelage, under their control, under their power, they have left us so weak, so fragile, that it took merely 2 weeks. Think about this. The state is talking about running out of money after being, if you will, in a challenging financial position for less than 2 weeks. And it was less than a week ago that casinos were shut down. That's the position that they've left us in terms of financial responsibility. How can we assume then that they have any credibility whatsoever in how we defend ourselves? How can we assume they have any credibility whatsoever in any respect, in any way that they run this government? They don't.
I also think that it's kind of ironic because look at all the tax money that's coming into the state right now via firearm and ammo purchases, that we're kind of the ones that are helping everybody out here because the sales are going through the roof. So all that tax money, we're still contributing to the state. So that's kind of ironic, I think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, this always happens when you have some type of a crisis, people buy more firearms, but we've been very surprised at just how many more people are out there buying firearms. And you have to wonder, what is the reason? Are they afraid the government can't protect them? Are they afraid of their neighbors? What is the real driving force to,
Right.
For all these firearm purchases? And, when you get told by the Chiefs of Police Association and the Attorney General and the governor that the reason they need to extend firearm paperwork is because, the police are understaffed, that does not give you a warm and fuzzy feeling, because a lot of these people, their big preach up there when they're anti-gunning is that, you have a problem, you call the police. Well, here we are in a situation like this, and now you're telling us that there's not enough, you're understaffed. So that's kind of ironic also, because a lot of things that we've been trying to say to defend our Second Amendment rights, people are seeing firsthand now. And I think that, I hope they remember that. I hope they remember that, that we told you that the police couldn't protect everybody. That's not really their job. Their job is to enforce the law, so, and now you're seeing it firsthand. So now, how are these people, how is the mindset going to be when we come out of this? I think we're all waiting to see what the mindset on the Second Amendment is going to be as we come out of this. If people are going to remember and how they felt, why they felt, and if legislators are paying attention to really what's happening.
Despite the fact that folks can't meet in person, there is still very much an opportunity for folks to assert their rights. And one of the ways they can do that, quite frankly, is by joining your organization or one of the other organizations in the Second Amendment community here in Rhode Island. God bless social media. I'm always fascinated by the poobahs in the media who decry the dumpster fire that is Twitter, that somehow the folks who are out of control on the Facebook. Well, guess what? They're upset because this represents a loss of control. They are no longer the chattering heads. They no longer got the exclusive, if you will, on talking to the folks. There's a lot of great indie media in the state. Tony Jones, Alan Gibberti, who's always there on the Second Amendment. There's places to come where we can have these conversations live and in person via the miracle of the internet. And it's a direct poke in the eye of the establishment media and the establishment figures who would presume that they are the only ones qualified to somehow think on our behalf. And yet they've done a pretty poor job of doing it so far during this entire crisis. One, to answer your question indirectly, why would one suspect that they're going to have, hopefully not a deathbed conversion to some type of responsibility and some type of adult behavior as we work through this? Because quite frankly, when I look at the spirit of volunteerism in this country, it is on so many levels, it is not the government, but it's individual heroes at so many different levels, whether it be healthcare, whether it be distribution, food. So many hidden heroes have popped up already, really putting themselves on the line as the government sits there and argues about whether you should get a $1,000 or a $1,200 check. Oh my God. I just, there's tragedy in the air, and it won't be because of individual civil liberty warriors like you. And it won't be because of the lack of effort by individuals in a variety of private organizations stepping up to do that which the government seems seemingly thoroughly incapable of doing on themselves. You know, it's it's beguiling to watch. You know, so the answer to me is what people need to do is join your organization, join other organizations now, while we're sitting here taking stock of what's happening, so that we can continue to coalesce, so that when we do come out of this, and we will, when we come out of this, there will be no longer a question, no longer a challenge to the right to bear arms here in the state of Rhode Island. How can they find your organization on the web and on the Facebook? We've linked them to your website, and how can they join?
So you can go right onto our website and join at rirrai.org. You can find us through Facebook at Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle. We're on Facebook, and we post often, but you can join right through the website. But I want to expand upon what you just said. So one of the things that we've been talking about is that once we're all done being grounded, we are going to be offering free safety training, because we want to make sure, we always promote gun safety, firearm safety, knowledge. And so we are going to be putting together a lot of free training for all of our new firearm owners. There's also numbers on all of our websites. There's a number on our Rhode Island Revolver. There's a number on Federated. And also Federated is now taking memberships as well, individual and club memberships. And that's a great organization. So you can contact any of us, and we will be able to get you in touch with instructors. But we are going to be putting together safety classes. We're going to be putting together our annual Women's Day, our annual Youth Day. We're working on a veterans program to get all the veterans back out to the range. So make sure that you're following us, all of our groups on Facebook, and make sure that you're joining up and becoming members, because we are going to be offering a lot of programs coming up this season. As soon as we can get things rolling again. I'm an instructor. I know that I'm going to be adding on a lot of classes, and a lot of the classes we do are just for cost or for free. Because we don't make any money. That's another thing that I wanted to expand upon. When it comes to Moms Against America and Moms Demand Action and all of these other groups, they're all paid people. Every one of us and all of our groups are all 100% volunteers. We get no money. In fact, we go broke putting money in to our organizations to keep things running. And people don't realize that we don't have a Bloomberg in our background. We represent members that are paying members, and we are all 100% volunteers.
Well, that's outstanding, Rita. And again, my hat's off to your organization and the greater 2A community in the state. Our wake-up call has happened. I think we're going to get out of it. But the right thing to do, as you pointed out, is immediately take a deep breath, and then we all dive right the hell back in. Let's actually start to work to roll back some of this legislation. Let's go on the offense. I find red flag legislation to be personally offensive, particularly after a couple legislators had pointed out to me that it was for the veterans. The veterans. How insulting. Our veterans need our support, our love, our help. In certain cases, they need our support in terms of mental health care, physical health care, finding ways to get them employed. They need that. They certainly don't need to be put in some sort of box, if you will, by condescending SOBs who think that somehow they're simply better than them because these folks served our nation. When I look at laws like that, when I look at laws like gun stock legislation, please stop it. Just stop it. And so again,
does everybody understand the what's going on with the executive order? Because I'd like to touch base on that, because we're getting a lot of.
We almost missed that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that what happened is the Police Chiefs Association contacted us because they were having a hard time keeping up with the paperwork. So funny enough, we were in contact with all the gun stores, and the gun stores were already telling us that, the NIC system was backed up. police chiefs are backed up. So they proactively and for consideration for the police departments, as they were selling firearms, we're letting people know that there's been a huge influx in sales and that there might be a delay. So weeks before they even got bogged down, we saw this coming. So the gun stores already had taken a responsible approach and told people that there might be a delay. No problem. Everybody was like understanding, except the people that were new and did not understand that you needed a blue card to purchase a firearm. You needed to have a 7-day wait. You needed a background check. Some people didn't even realize that. But I can't, that baffles me a little bit. But, some people, they haven't had to pay attention to what's happening, so they did not realize that all of the hoops you have to jump through to purchase a firearm. So
Right.
the gun stores, I have to shout out to the gun stores. They've been fabulous in explaining the procedure to people and giving the civics lesson that goes along with explaining that to people. But so then we had talked back and forth with the Police Chiefs Association, and they said that they were bogged down, and that they needed to extend to 10 days. And we're like, that's fine. We understand. We explained to them that the gun stores were already being proactive. And then all of a sudden we get the notice on Channel 10 that here we are, 30-day wait, 30-day, because that's what Gina, the governor, and the AG's office and the head of the Police Chiefs Association wanted to do. And I just thought that was overkill, because for one, we are responsible adults. We are capable of making adult decisions, and our gun stores all were being very responsible, very safe, very proactive. They did not need to go to this extreme. So there was a lot of confusion saying that it was a 30-day waiting period, but it is not actually a waiting period. The police chiefs now have 30 days to get the paperwork back to the gun stores. And then, but in most cases, we're finding that the police chiefs in the local towns are getting the paperwork back in as timely manner as that they can. And then the firearms can be released once they have the NICS check and the state paperwork. So it is not a mandatory 30-day waiting period like people were afraid of, because your NICS paperwork expires on the 30th day. So that would have nullified every sale. But we do have some issues with the governor backdating it, because her authority only goes for 30 days. So she put it for 30 days, but then she backdated it to March 13th. So she actually exceeded her executive powers that she's been granted. But, we're trying to take a deep breath and be like, this is uncharted territory. So we're not going crazy over that yet. But we just felt like, we were already doing okay, and we were already being considerate of the police chiefs. And a lot of the police chiefs were grateful to the gun stores that they were being so patient, and then they had to go and ram this down like we're not adult enough to make
Right.
to make good decisions.
Right. No, and we all know the police chiefs who do their best to jump on the paperwork, and we all know the police chiefs who, if it's 30 days, they'll be there at 11 o'clock at night on the 30th day. I know.
Right.
We just do. Well,
so we're going to keep a close eye on this, because we want to make sure that it doesn't get, we're going to keep a close eye on this, that it doesn't get extended again, or that any shenanigans are played with this. This is a wide open door right now, and we're keeping a close eye on that, because that could go bad real quickly, especially if now they're like, oh, well, that worked so great while we were under executive order, let's make it permanent. That's what we're afraid of. And here we have a great system, and now they've already messed it up with the new bill by putting loopholes in that new bill. And now this comes along. So we're going to stay hyper vigilant on this one.
As you guys do on literally everything. Well, let me take a moment to thank our sponsors, if you can. We're blessed in that despite these difficult times, we've got a handful of sponsors who've been with us for a number of years. Beacon Shipping and Logistics, beaconshippingandlogistics.com, if you will, a nationwide shipper of automobiles offering international national service, located right here in Warwick, Rhode Island, 1-855-3-SHIP-IT. Air Sciences, you've seen Daryl Gould on the show. In fact, Daryl Gould ran against Jason Nice twice. The second time, he took a rather interesting, fairly aggressive approach to it. But airsciences.net. Now, listen, if you want subject matter experts during these difficult times, Daryl has specialized for almost 20 years in mold remediation and biohazards. Yes, he knows a lot about this. Yes, he knows what will work at a certain level. He will also keep you away from the charlatans. As you can imagine, this is going to be the latest version of Get Rich Quick by a bunch of people who really have no experience in this area. Daryl does also a lot of pro bono work for folks who are already immune compromised. If you've got needs, you've got issues, you've got questions, reach out to Daryl Gould at airsciences.net. And of course, Yacht Club Soda, yachtclubbottlingworks.com, Rhode Island's boutique soda, before we even knew we needed a boutique soda. 100-plus years in business. He's open. You know, he's in stores around the state, but during these challenging times, they are open in their Centerdale bottling location, the finest soda on the planet. And listen, if they're willing to support organizations like myself and support your First Amendment, Second Amendment, civil liberties, you know what? Let's give a little bit back to them. All of these organizations have been involved in the community for years, doing things because they're the right thing to do when really no one's watching. And of course, we've got opportunities on coalitionradionetwork.com. That's our new site. It's a basic site, one pager. A big thanks to Frank Rattay for helping us get this up and running, where you maybe have the opportunity to watch our programming in the future. You know, we are financed by contributors and donors and sponsors. So if you have a few dollars, help us out, send us your way during these challenging times to take a little bit off the pressure off our sponsors. Listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. As you know, we're going to have you on again before the session gets restarted, and we're going to be all over this. So, again,
thank you for having me.
No, you're Herculean are your efforts. I'll leave you with one thought about your organization. Again, I've said this in our run-up when I introduce you. When I walk into the State House during session, and I look up into the upper right-hand corner of the eaves, and I see folks in gold shirts sitting there, just taking notes, having a little quiet read, paying attention, but also making it crystal clear to the people sitting in the aisles, our solons, our legislators, our leaders. You guys are there for the duration. You're not going away, and you're there not just to support your rights, but you represent a volunteer organization that's willing to support the civil rights of all Rhode Islanders. Some who maybe 6 months ago would never have thought about purchasing a firearm, and realizing that they did and they needed to. And the very fact that they still can, despite all these intrusions into our civil rights, is a testament to the willingness of the Second Amendment community in this state to extend themselves beyond all reason. You folks shouldn't have to do this, but yet you do. And for that, at times like this in our nation's history, we are eternally grateful. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to give one more shout out to all of the groups that we work with, and that's the Federated, the Rifle, and the Second Amendment Coalition. Every one of these groups, we all work hard together, and I just want to make sure that they're, that we acknowledge them too. And go to our Facebooks, go to our web pages, and join our groups, and come along and join the firearm family, because we're an awesome group of people. And thank you so much for having me on. And just call me if you ever need any clarification or you need any more information.
Well, you are, as we say, a repeat offender. You're part of the family, whether you like it or not here. So you will be back. It is on your permanent record. Okay, Brenda Jacobs?
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night now. And on that note, we're going to sign off. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage-porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Here in the bunker, somewhere in the city of La Prov, the Naked City, Providence, Rhode Island, the city of 1,000 stories. We told one tonight. We will continue to. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, the mothership at coalitionradio.us, and our new sort of broadcast site, our front end, if you will, to this entire enterprise, coalitionradionetwork.com. We'll see you soon. Thank you.